Good morning and welcome to our August 22nd, 2022 strategic planning meeting. It is 9:01 and we will get started. The first topic of the morning is let the record reflect that all three commissioners are present and our executive management team and several others in here. So we will start off though with Tony Hall from purchasing. Is Tony
right here?
There we go. There we go, Tony.
Yeah. In person.
Just wanted to follow up with you guys, not on a screen this time, from our conversation last week on raising the A&E threshold for master on-call contracts. And you guys had a lot of questions last time. I met with the internal stakeholder team midway through last week, and I think Bruce Russell gave a really good overview of the justification behind this from a stakeholder perspective, and I'll let him go through your speech that you gave last time, Bruce.
Well, it wasn't really a speech, but I got volunteered, so
Wise
here I
words.
am.
Yep.
Basically, what we're running up against is more and more frequently we're hearing that for some of these smaller projects, the on-call design teams are saying that they don't have time or they can't do it. They aren't really giving us any specific reason. And so we were thinking if we boosted that threshold a little bit, it just would save us some time in terms of having to put out more RFQs, right? Because anything that hits over a $75,000 limit right now, we have to do an RFQ, which is, it's not a lot of extra effort. It just takes more time. So if there's any kind of a rush on a project, we're going to lose a month, 2 months just in that process. So we've had a couple of projects where we've reached out to our on-call teams and they've said, we just can't do it. And I've also heard from them that they're having to increase their salaries because they're getting people being poached away from them with signing bonuses for other firms, higher salaries, that kind of thing. And so while they haven't come right out and said that that's the reason why they can't do it, that's my suspicion, that or they're just way too busy, which I could very well be. We just don't know that. I haven't reached out and specifically asked those folks what those reasons are. Most of our projects fall within the $75,000 range, but I have a sneaky suspicion that as we move forward with all of the cost increases for construction and wages and benefits and so on and so forth, I think we're going to be quickly approaching that point where we're going to have to do more and more RFQs in order to get a design team on board, rather than just calling up our on-call and having, with the beauty of the on-call system is we can reach out to somebody, we can give them an overview of what the project is. Within a week, they can give us their fee proposal and we can get them under contract and we can move, right? So we're usually under contract and working within a couple of weeks at the most. The RFQ process just takes, anywhere from 1 to 2 months to get that process going, right? Because we have to issue the RFQ. We have to set up a review committee. Once that RFQ responses come in, we have to make a presentation to the board for you guys to approve that and move forward. Again, not a huge deal unless it's a time-sensitive project. So that's kind of where we're at. That's why I initially broached this subject with Tony and his crew several months ago, saying, look, I'm getting these responses from people and this might be the reason why. Is there any way to kick it up? And in the process of this, we've since learned, I think it was Paul out at Parks has reached out to a couple of other counties and found out that one of those counties doesn't have any limit at all. They have some kind of a review process of anything that gets like over $350,000 or something like that.
Clark County.
Is that Clark? Okay. And so he's finding that they don't really have that, which I don't think that's really necessary at all for our purposes. Because like I say, most of our projects fall within that, certainly underneath the $100,000 range. So for the most part, it's not a huge deal, but I'm just trying to be anticipatory of what we could be seeing with all of the new pricing that's going on out there. Construction costs are just going through the roof still. And I just worry that even though even though our contracts are not written in such a manner that the design fees are directly related to the construction costs. It's more of a fixed fee. Oftentimes they reflect a percentage of what that construction cost is. In my 7 years here, I've seen design fees being roughly 8% of what construction costs are coming in at. That's changing a little bit, right? We're seeing things go up a little bit. In fact, for the new space that we're creating over in the Public Works building for the 2 new commissioners, that came in more like 10 or 11% of what we're anticipating those costs will be. We don't know that yet, but that fee came in quite a bit higher than what I was anticipating it being. Right. Part of that is because we're telling them it's a rush and they have to really get on it right away because we know it's a time sensitive project. But I mean, had they come in, $10,000 more on their design fee, we would have had to say no. We would have had to gone out for an RFQ, and then delay the project a couple of months just for that process, which is ultimately what I'm trying to avoid. I'm just trying to avoid the time restrictions or the time impacts that this would have.
So what are you seeing as an hourly rate for a principal architect now? I just want to get a better idea of how much I'm giving up by being here.
I haven't seen an actual breakdown on their hourly charges. They usually just give us a lump sum fee, but I can find that out. I think the last time I looked, it was like $2.50 an hour.
Yeah, 250 an hour is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So question for me is like, so then how many people do we have? How many architectural firms do we have on call?
I think our current list is it's either 7 or 8.
Okay, so we have.
So there's a good handful there. I mean, we could just keep going down the list, but again, that's a time factor, right? Because by the time you talk to one, if they say no, then you got to call the other. But assuming they tell us no right away, that's a minimal time.
But we have that opportunity versus raising the limit. So
Sure.
you're not exhausting that list.
No, we can make do. I'm not, this isn't a critical thing for us. We're just trying to be, anticipate the needs coming down the road, right? I mean, who knows, the market could totally really crash, everything fall, all the prices fall down, in a year, we don't know that. But based on the increases we're seeing in construction and hearing from these firms that they have people who are jumping ship, people who've been there for 10, 15 years because they got a signing bonus with another firm somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're having a hard time keeping the people, right, without boosting their income, without boosting, their benefits or something. Right. So, I mean, like the folks who did our post-pandemic study, one of the individuals who's on that report through 3/4 of it, she jumped ship, at about the 3/4 mark because she just got a great offer from another local firm.
Yeah, no, and
So,
that's happening all
yeah.
across everywhere. So I mean, but I guess if we're then trying to stick at certain people on the list, and I guess I would feel like we need to make sure it's still going to be faster to go down the list than it is to go out for an RFQ. Correct.
Yeah, and oftentimes the people who respond to an RFQ are the same people who are on that list anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, the only difference is that if it's a project that we feel is going to exceed that $75,000 limit, that's what triggers the RFQ process.
So are we reaching a point where we should be considering hiring our own drafting staff internally? I mean, you're a licensed architect and
Right.
stuff, so if you had a couple draftsmen working for you, could we generate this work internally and save money as opposed to contracting it out to the private
Well,
sector?
now that we've hired Carson, he's the new design and construction manager 1. He's a recent architectural graduate. He's helping me a lot with that kind of stuff. So, and for those projects where we do our own internal design, we could do that. Anything that requires me to get a, electrical engineer or mechanical engineer, I have to hire those out anyway.
Right.
But our goal is to do as much of that in-house as we can, because that just saves the county a lot of money, right? So as the more that we can do that, then that reduces that scope of fee for design team, because then I'm not hiring the whole team. I'm only hiring those pieces I need. Right, another option that we could potentially do would be to hire like the architect and each individual engineer separately, right? So each one of those would fall underneath that 75, but then that makes it a much more intensive effort on our part to manage that. And it creates a more opportunity for somebody to say, well, that was his job and that was her job, whatever. And, those are those things that just make it more difficult to manage. Whereas the way we do it right now, when we hire a prime, if something goes wrong, it's great from my perspective, because I just go to that one point of contact and say, this is your responsibility. You need to take care of this. But it's all doable. I mean, it's just a matter of the time effort that we want to put into it.
Okay, I see Paul Knowles joined us as well. Paul, do you have any comments?
Hold on here. All right. Monday morning. Good morning, everybody. No, I think Bruce summed it up really well. I would just say on the research I did reach out to 4 different county purchasing departments and only heard back from Snohomish County Clark County and Pierce County. And so Clark County does not have a monetary cap on their A&E on-call contracts. And with Pierce County, basically their cap is effectively at 300,000. And then basically folks are supposed to go after an RFQ, anything over, but that's not necessarily a bright line. That's kind of a project to project according to them. So, and really, from my perspective, I would just add that, really we're supportive of anything that just gives us additional flexibility. And so, like Bruce was saying, the RFQ process, it's not a bad way to go. And often, even if the contract value is under 75,000, we'll go through an RFQ process just to get the right consultant or design team on board for that. But again, that's time, and that's about 2 months. And if we can go off of our on-call list to put a design team together, it definitely saves us time for projects. So,
Matt?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Matt Zaracore, Public Works. Just wanted to tag on to what Bruce and Paul were saying. I think the Public Works Department uses the on-call list a lot for environmental survey, design, construction services, kind of across the board. Also a bunch of research related stormwater requirements in our stormwater permit. So a lot of different fronts. And what we've found more and more often is our on-calls, and we have some really good on-call lists, which is great. It's a really good tool for us, but more and more often they're telling us we can't get near the scope that you're asking for 75. So usually we end up having to pare down scope just to get it done quickly because we're trying to meet deadlines. If we have time, we can certainly plan it. Like Bruce says, RFQs aren't the end of the world. It's a little more process, a little more staff time, but nothing insurmountable. But really, it is, to me, a little bit stunning, and to Commissioner French's point about the hourly rates and what you don't get for $75,000. It does not buy as much in our world. So to me, adjusting that up somewhere makes a lot of sense, because it's, we're short staffed anyway. So to add, we have to do more RFQs all the time to that process. It's just one more thing, pulls us away from other things we can be working on. And we really find we use those a lot, and we know we always pare down the scope, and then that means our staff is likely picking up the rest of that scope of work. And again, it's a tool in our toolbox. It would be more useful if it had a higher limit on it, and I don't know what the right number is, but it certainly 75 doesn't seem to get us much in this day and age.
Thank you. So it looks like, on the data side, that there's 104 contracts that have been issued. I guess, Tony, can you?
Yeah, just really high level, some of the stats you guys were asking for. So the threshold, I was wrong last time. It was not set in 2017. It was set in 2015. And we have 104 contracts that have been issued through this process. The average contract is around 25,000 for us for A&E on-call specific. And the other data point that you wanted, there have been 4 contracts going through this method that were between 75,000 and 125,000 since 2015. And then I listed the 4 down there. So you could have a little bit of context.
So it isn't a lot, but I mean, if we raised it to, because one of the lawyers, I think Victor's was like, if we could raise it to, even 100,000. I mean, I think I'd be willing to raise it to 100,000 and kind of see where we're at and see if that helps with that process. I mean, partly it's, again, just from my perspective. I think I stated last time to, just being aware of what these projects are and all of that is, something that I want to make sure that we as the board are aware of. And so maybe if we raise it, since it has been raised in several years to 100 and see if that's enough to do that. And then I guess I would want to make sure that we're going down the list, too. But that we're not just have our favorite and using that person. So
We're picking, from my experience, we pick the firm that's on that list because we aren't required to pick the number 1.
right.
We can pick whoever fits best for a project. For instance, we did the winterization at Avista Stadium. Well, ALS had a lot of work at Avista Stadium, so it just made more sense to reach out to them because they have that
Yeah, the
knowledge, right, of
expertise.
what's going on there. And same thing with anything that happens in the detention area, we reach out to Integris because they're on the list, right? Because that's their bread and butter, right? They do juvenile or detention work all the time. And they are by far the experts in the area. So it just depends on the scope of the project, right? I mean, if it's a smaller project, a $10,000-$15,000 project, I'm less likely to reach out to the bigger firms, right? Because they're the guys who charge more, and I'm going to likely get one of their junior staff members doing work anyway. Whereas if I go to one of these smaller firms on that list, I'm more likely to get at least some level of principal involvement, right? And it's not just going to be something that you hand off to the intern to do, and with somebody just supervising.
And
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just they're just, you get a little higher quality control if there's a upper level management being involved.
agreed. How often do you go out for the list?
Just depends on what projects we have going on.
No, like how often do you got to put people on?
Oh, it's a 5-year process
It's a
to
5-year.
get to develop the on-call list.
Yeah.
It's a 5-year process. We did
And so
architecture,
So
mechanical, electrical and all that, I think 2 years ago.
in the future too, it is 5-year, but what it is a 1-year contract for renewals. So we have the opportunity to cancel or change direction any year past year 1.
any other, I mean, like I said, I'd be willing to go up to 100,000 and look at that.
Yeah, I'm good with either 100 or 125. I mean, you raise a good point in that if you don't have room in the project, then you don't get that experienced look. And with more and more of that workforce being young and experienced, it puts you at risk of mistakes that would be made if you don't have those experienced eyes looking at the project. And so,
Right, which is going to turn into a change order on our end.
yeah, so, I mean, I'm. Yeah, it just, makes me want to go out and start my firm back. With that kind of money out there, my God, it's just insane. But that was a joke. I'm not leaving anywhere, going anywhere. Anyway, so I'm good either way. I'm not strong one way or the other.
Either way.
I guess I'd like to, go with 100,000 and just see kind of, what if not enough. And then if we need to look at adjusting again, we can do that, but I'd rather start there and then adjust up if we need to.
Sure. Any room that we move forward, is going to be a help for us, right? Like I say, most of our projects fall underneath the 75 anyway, but we've had a few like with the family law, we actually had to break that into family law and restrooms as 2 completely separate projects because of the fee structure. Right, so otherwise we would have had to go out for an RFQ on that.
Mary, as we all know, if the board, I get a sense they want to move forward, Mr. Hall will prepare the necessary resolution for formal advertising or action by the board. So we don't expect formal action today, except Tony will move forward to advertise at the $100,000 level is what my understanding at the present time. So is that your understanding, Mr. Hall?
Correct.
Okay, so I want to be sure there's no final action today, just kind of a moving forward. Staff will move forward as we have heard.
Great, thank you.
A good talking point too this week, as a stakeholder team, we will be keeping more data, more stats on this specific. It's very hard to keep data when Matt is talking about they have to reduce scope. We haven't been capturing that, and we'll start doing that going forward.
Very good. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, well, that's gonna take us, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That's gonna take us to James Moore. I see you're zooming in and Scott Chesney.
Yes, Commissioner, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
I turn the video on. Hold on one second. Yeah. Yeah, it's not cooperating.
That's okay. We can hear you just fine.
Okay. Okay, excellent. So what it is, we talked briefly last year regarding moving from the construction review board for building official appeals to going to the hearing examiner for this purpose. We talked with the prior hearing examiner, Matt Koza, and myself to go over this change and how other jurisdictions are using this process. And so then with Chris Anderson coming on board as the hearing examiner, I briefly spoke with him, and the anticipated workload of this change is going to be, very minor, as the last time the construction review board convened was in the early 90s and has not been used since. The reason for the construction review board, little history on it, is if someone does not believe that the building official's interpretation is correct, they appeal it to the review board. The review board's job is to look at the decision to see if it is truly what the code says. Does it meet the intent of the code? Is that what we're after? It is not to provide suggestions on how the construction is to happen. It is simply just to say, yes, the building official was correct, or no, the building official was incorrect. And, we have to find a different avenue. So it's an appeal process for the administrative piece of the building permits. So other jurisdictions in the area, I think almost all of them use the hearing examiner. And so that's what we're looking to do. We'd be changing Title III to remove the construction review board and revising Title I, Section 146, I believe, just to add the language to take on that duty. And I will say that typically what happens is when someone doesn't agree with, if I have to get involved and make an interpretation, then we go to the State Building Code Council and look for an interpretation there. If that still doesn't satisfy the applicant's concerns, then we go to ICC, the actual code body, and ask them for a formal interpretation on exactly what the code is saying. And with each of those interpretations, you send in your plans, your documentation on what was presented and what you're asking for. So again, this move will probably never be used, but it's just we want to be able to create a consistent and unified appeal process in building and planning. And by doing this, we are able to move to the consistency, and we're also able to quote unquote staff an appeal process for the building permits. If we stay with the construction review board, then the Board of County Commissioners, by Title III currently, you have to elect 2 people, and then we have to find other people from the industry as well. And so this just simplifies the entire process and keeps it consistent with other jurisdictions.
Thank you. Any comments since you're on the building code council? Do you?
No, I mean, James described it fairly well, and we do have a number of communities that do not have a local design review board that end up, if there's an appeal of a building official, it comes directly to the building code council and then we'll rule on it. The problem with that process is that it takes a long time. And it can take up to a year to get a response back because it gets reviewed, and then you got to look at code language, find out whether it has to be modified. It's a laborious process. So having something at the local level, and if Chris Anderson is of a mind to take this on, I think hopefully it will make the process a little bit more efficient, and it'll give us a little bit more control at the local level as opposed to sending it to Olympia for their, mine mill.
And then
I-
if we do it here locally, James, I mean, then it doesn't go to the building code
So
council at all, or can it still go after the hearing exam, or someone could still appeal to there?
Yeah, what I heard, James, and correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody wanted to appeal Chris's ruling, then it would go to the building code council. So it comes to you first, then the hearing examiner, and then building code council.
Yeah, I believe. So what I try to do is I have contacts at the code council that I get a hold of to get an instant response. Hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I want to do. And then they tell me if I'm incorrect in my interpretation. Then typically, literally what I do is I'll hang up and I'll call ICC because I can get an informal interpretation, opinion, I guess you would say. And I talk to them to see if I'm on track or if I'm, if I'm completely incorrect. And if I'm close, then what I do is I submit for a formal through ICC, and that takes about 6 weeks. If that formal comes back and it's still not what the applicant wants, then it goes to the hearing examiner and they're the final say. And I think Matt Koza is wanting to chime in real quick.
Yeah.
Matt?
He's on, so yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Sure. So the way the formal appeal will work here, it'll go to the hearing examiner, and then the hearing examiner's decision can be appealed via LUPA to the Superior Court. So this will, the process will be comparable to the zoning code decisions and how they're appealed. So the Building Code Council is not the final administrative appeal body here. They can offer advice, as James was describing, but it goes hearing examiner and then Superior Court via LUPA.
And then you're avoiding so in your process, you're avoiding the state building code council altogether then, other than advisory to James, but they're not taking an official position. They're just offering advice to James.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to, my philosophy, I guess you would say, is how do we use the code to help the applicant? And if I can use the code in an avenue that helps the applicant and still stays within the intent of the code, then that's what we should be doing. And if I have a clear code path to do it, that's what I'm going to do. It's when you have the one-offs, I've had 3 in the last 8 years that have gone to ICC. And at the end of it, everything was fine and everyone was happy. So again, I don't see this as a very large lift.
Okay, thank you very much. So.
And I'd like to use this as we want to get this on the books as kind of fast as this change as fast as possible. So work with Matt for noticing and things of that nature.
And Gina has a notice of public hearing along with the proposed changes attached. It's a 10-day notice pursuant to 36321207. So if the board were to sign the notice tomorrow, we could have the hearing on the 6th.
Okay, great. Thank you. No other questions?
I'm comfortable with it.
I think, yeah, I think you're getting 3 head nods saying we're comfortable with you guys moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you, commissioners. If you have further questions, please reach out to me.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for.
Thank you.
being on. Okay, so next we have Matt Zarecor.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Ron has a quick PowerPoint. We have one establishment, and one limited access that we want to bring in front of the commissioners. The first establishment is for Spring Air Estates, a new plat in the county. Next slide, please, Ron. And just for reference, you can see this is in North Spokane County and the Meade area, south of Farwell. It's directly east of the new NSC corridor, kind of an infill project, and a little bit west of Market Street. Next slide. So this is the plat layout. You can see there's the road names that were shown on the first slide there: Hastings, Mettler, Briarwood, Harding, Chatham, and Savannah and Green Street being the north-south streets. So it's an infill project. And again, we've gone through the full process with them, approved plans per county standards. The roads have been built and certified by private staff, and that has been reviewed and approved by county staff. So this is one we're recommending moving forward for establishment. Just wanted to give you the heads up on it, opportunity to ask any questions you might have. Okay, next slide. The next one is a limited access proposal on Ross Creek Road. Next slide. And on this one, you can see this is in the very northeast corner of the county. It's on top of Blanchard Road, which is the road that climbs over the top kind of some mountains there and goes up into Idaho. One of our few east-west connections in the north. Next slide. And you can see the yellow there is a portion of Ross Creek that we already had under limited access, and the red is the proposed addition to the limited access. The only property owners off this road are the gentleman requesting the limited access and Inland Empire Paper, and they have an agreement for continuing the access they need when they need it. So this is another one that we're proposing approving if the board's supportive of it. Happy to answer any questions. Okay, hearing none, that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Okay, so then there's also a Jackson Road temporary closure.
Yeah, that's really just, I wasn't realizing that was on there, but it's really just a heads up to the board. We had a citizen come in that was very concerned about a couple of the limited accesses, the gated roads that we have currently. One is Jackson Road, and it goes over the top on kind of a ridge line off of Micah and then continues north down to Belmont. It's gated at the very top. There's a homeowner that lives there. It was very difficult for us to maintain and didn't serve a real tangible purpose. We had approved the limited access. I believe it was in 08, it's quite a while ago. And we just have a citizen that's very concerned about us limiting access to public roads. The other one that you brought up was Gibbs Road, that I think you're familiar with, between Sands and Madison Road. So it's really, the citizen in particular has just a very large concern with us limiting access to any existing public road. And I suspicion he'll come and testify at some of the upcoming public hearings under just the general item. I really just wanted to give that awareness to the board.
So will there be a gate placed on this for limited access?
Yeah, there's one now and the
Yeah.
gate will be moved.
So the gate's just
further.
gonna be moved.
Correct, yeah.
So did you hear about the death on South Madison over the weekend?
I did not.
Motorcycle, motorcyclist ended up South Madison going off the road and there were evidently two motorcyclists and the one that was riding with him left the scene. But the other guy that passed away, so. Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear something about that at some point.
Yeah, down in the Valley Forge area. So. Yeah, so we'll need to have another conversation on Gibbs here.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing conversation. I believe Commissioner Cooney, you've heard from other citizens out on that road with concerns about it. We have been giving anybody that wants a key to the gate, but it's never been a well-maintained road. It's always been a summer road and it has seen lots of erosion. It's usually not drivable. Frankly, the most use it sees is typically kids in the spring wanting to go mudding there with their trucks, and
Which makes the road even worse.
yeah, so it was kind of an attractive nuisance in many ways. The folks that live along it had requested it. One, a former Washington State Patrol officer that lives directly adjacent to the section. So we'll see where that conversation goes. So we continue to hear about it from other sources too.
So what stretch of Gibbs Road are we talking about?
Between Sands and Madison.
Yeah. It's primarily on the sands and it's a very short section, maybe a few hundred yards.
Okay,
It is,
I hadn't heard about this and stuff, so.
well, it came before us a couple of years ago, we put a gate up. Because it is a summer road and it's not maintained. And I've been out there several times over the course of the last 3 years.
This is in your district or not?
Yeah.
It's in your, okay, that's why I
I
had,
remember.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Because there was a homeowner who was trying to make the road better and actually paid personally for that.
Okay, now it's coming back to
But from there to Sands is a summer road and it is rutted and not, we're not, we can't maintain everything.
Yeah.
So,
Did the private, the homeowner that was privately paying did that, is that done? Did he get that? Paved?
yeah, probably
or-
not up to, no, not paid.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, they were never paid. They were
Oh,
just trying
just
to.
graveling it or something?
gravel.
Oh, okay.
So,
They raised the section they needed for access up to a county standard that we were willing to maintain. But the portion beyond that connects over to Sands is what we gated and what's closed. And it's been a very polarizing topic on an ongoing basis, so we'll see. More
it has,
conversation.
and we're just, I don't, not sure how many people were really used it.
Yeah, it's a great way to get from nowhere to nowhere. It's not a great connection. We have better connections and Palouse Highway to the north and Dishman Micah to the north and Palouse to the south. So it's a questionable benefit. It dead ends at Sands. It does not continue west, so. But some people would like to have it open, so we'll see. It's not a huge stretch is the other piece of it, so. If there was enough interest to improve it and the board's desire was to have it improved, it wouldn't be insurmountable on that front either.
And the former trooper that lives next to that, he actually has his own lane that goes parallel to that. So he wasn't even using that road to access his home. He had his own road on his own property. So, because it
Okay.
was not well maintained by the county.
things.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Then we're back right on time, 9:40.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. If I could have Mr. Valencia put on the overhead of a very short PowerPoint that I presented on this topic for the board members, and I believe each one of you, I don't know if Commissioner Kearns, do you have a copy of the overhead? I'm not sure that you do.
I do.
Oh, you do? Thank you very much. The purpose of this particular briefing is to update the board on establish a new tourism promotion area. If I could have Ron, please go to the next slide. Some background information. As the board is aware, in 2003, the Washington State Legislature recognized the significance of tourism promotion within the state of Washington and adopted a particular law. The law authorized counties and cities to establish tourism promotion areas. And once established, the city or county could impose, at the request of the lodging businesses, a per day head tax on individuals who occupied, if you will, rooms in lodging businesses within the tourism promotion area. After the passage of the new law, Spokane County was the first county that established a tourism promotion area within the state of Washington. And it was established in 2004-05. And the boundaries of that tourism promotion area included the city of Spokane, the city of Spokane Valley, and the unincorporated area of Spokane County. Once the tourism promotion area was established, the county commissioners, as the lead agency, adopted an ordinance which imposed a special assessment on individuals housing, lodging within the lodging businesses. The interlocal agreement among the city of Spokane, Spokane County, and the city of Spokane Valley was modified to provide a mechanism to terminate the tourism promotion area. As a result of the amendment of that interlocal agreement, the city of Spokane Valley opted to terminate the presently existing tourism promotion area effective December 31st, 2022. So as of that date, there is no longer a tourism promotion area within Spokane County. If I could please go to the next slide, Ron. As a result of that, the lodging businesses within Spokane County initiated the process to create a new tourism promotion area within Spokane County. The new tourism promotion area would be effective as of January 1st, 2023. In conjunction with the request to establish the new tourism promotion area, the lodging businesses presented a petition to the Board of County Commissioners clerk on August 11th, 2022. The petition requests that the county commissioners move forward to establish a new tourism promotion area. I want to interject here. The original proposal by the lodging businesses was to establish a tourism promotion area which would include the city of Spokane, the city of Airway Heights, the city of Cheney, the city of Liberty Lake, and the unincorporated area of Spokane County. The city of Liberty Lake opted not to participate in the tourism promotion area. The city of Airway Heights determined not to participate in the tourist promotion area. And the city of Cheney has determined not to participate in the new tourism promotion area. So the present proposal is to establish a new TPA, which would simply include the city of Spokane and the unincorporated area of Spokane County. Subsequent to the submission of the tourism promotion area petition, if I can have you go to the next slide, please, Ron. Again, thank you very much, Ron. Once the tourism promotion area petition has been submitted to the Board of County Commissioners, the Board of County Commissioners is required by law to set a public hearing to consider a notice of intent to establish the new TPA. The board is required to set a public hearing on adopting an ordinance which would implement a charge to lodging businesses within the new tourism promotion area. The Board of County Commissioners is required to execute an interlocal agreement with the city of Spokane to join the TPA. And then finally, the Board of County Commissioners is required to execute an agreement with the Department of Revenue to administer the particular tourist promotion area. A couple of things I'd like to share with the board. I have been working very closely with Mike Piccolo, the city attorney, who's been assigned to work on this project. And he's advised me that the city of Spokane, although they have the majority of the lodging business within their boundaries, are comfortable with Spokane County taking the lead on the formation and administration of the new tourism promotion area. And the reason is because we are presently, as you know, the lead on the tourism promotion area. And so we're very comfortable in moving forward in that direction. And I've also been working very closely with Visit Spokane on the provisions of the present ordinance and interlocal agreement. And the charges which the Board of County Commissioners will impose on the new TPA are the same charges that the lodging businesses are presently imposing and collecting. So there won't be any change in what they're doing. And with respect to that, I think that's all I wanted to say. If you go to the last slide, what I will be doing, unless I hear to the contrary with the board, is following the important dates on the slide. On next Tuesday's regular agenda, on the consent item, I will set a notice of public hearing regarding a notice to establish the new TPA. I will set a notice of public hearing regarding adoption of an ordinance formally establishing the new TPA and imposing charges. And those hearings will be set for September 13th, 2022. And when we hold those public hearings, at the same time, we're going to hold all of them together so we don't have confusion. We will formally adopt a notice of intent to establish the new TPA. We'll adopt an ordinance formally establishing the new TPA. We'll authorize the execution of the interlocal agreement with the city of Spokane, and will authorize the execution of an agreement with the Department of Revenue to implement the new ordinance. The reason why I'm moving forward on this, board members, is because in order to implement the TPA charge effective January 1st, 2023, we have to have all documents signed and notarized and certified to the Department of Revenue by October 18th, 2022. And if we don't have the new TPA established by then and the appropriate documents signed, the charges that we want to impose effective January 1st, 2023 would not be able to be imposed for another quarter. So that's my summary of the TPA. And as the board is aware, the city of the Valley, I believe, is intending on moving forward with its own TPA, if you will. And that's why they're not a party to this particular process. So I think the last slide is just questions. Does the board have any questions with respect to moving forward to establish the new TPA? Commissioner French.
So have we reached out to some of the other communities like Airway Heights or Cheney, who also have hotel motel operations, to see if they would want to be party to this or not?
Commissioner French, I appreciate your comments, and I did mention that, but let me restate that. The Visit Spokane and did reach out to the city of Airway Heights, and they said they did not want to be a part of it. They reached out to the city of Cheney, and interestingly enough, Commissioner French, the city of Cheney initially indicated they wanted to be a party, but they later on learned that both the lodging businesses in their jurisdiction were not interested in imposing a charge. So I think my understanding now is that they have backed out of that process.
Okay.
And the city of Liberty Lake, we also worked with. We thought originally they wanted to be a party, Commissioner French, but they too have opted to leave in place their present tourism promotion area.
If you mentioned that, and I just didn't.
That's
hear it,
all
so
right.
apologize.
I wasn't very clear. So
And I was gonna ask, I mean, why they didn't, but you just answered. So, yeah, because at the last Visit Spokane meeting, which I think was 2 months ago, we didn't have one last month. I mean, they were quite certain that all three of those cities were ready to join, that at Liberty Lake, Cheney, and Airway Heights, we're all gonna be a part of it. So that's surprising that they're not.
well, I think Commissioner Kearns, that's one reason why they wanted the county to be the lead, because it looked at the outset that it was going to be a more regional tourism promotion area. Now, as we get down to the final lines, we only have the two entities. And the unincorporated area of Spokane County, and as we all know, I believe the unincorporated area may have no more than 2 or 3 or maybe 4 at the most lodging businesses. Is that 4? Thank you, Scott. But having said that, I think the city of Spokane, they could opt to have the petition, submit the petition then, but I think they feel very comfortable with the county moving forward. And since we've been the lead all along, I haven't heard anything that we don't want to be the lead. And the lodging businesses feel very comfortable with what we've done. And they're the ones that submitted the petition to the clerk of the board.
How about Northern Quest?
You know, Commissioner French, they are you ask a good question. They haven't been commented. I don't think that, I've never thought about, can Northern Quest become part of the tourism promotion area and include the charge? They're a separate federal entity. They're not in the city of Airway Heights. By law, they probably could, Commissioner French. You ask a good question. I will query Visit Spokane and the Hotel Motel Association to see if they've talked with them.
Yeah, so I know from previous periods, there were some members of the TBA that were not happy that Northern Quest wasn't part of it.
Right.
So I've just, it'd be interesting to see, do they even want to be part of it? They might choose not to because they've got a pretty aggressive advertising campaign on their own, but I don't know, but I asked the question.
One of the issues, board members, as you know, is to form a TPA, the petition that has been submitted to us has to be signed by 60%, by lodging businesses who will pay 60% of the charges. And we've been advised by Visit Spokane that the present petition that's been submitted to the clerk contains the signatures of 69%, which is critical because I don't want to go to a public hearing like happened the last time and have someone question the petitions. We had to start all over again. So I've asked Visit Spokane to have their accounting firm certify to the Board of County Commissioners that the petition submitted has been signed by 60% of the lodging businesses who would pay 60% of the charges, because I don't want that to be an issue as we move forward. And incidentally, it does not include Northern Quest, but I will follow through on that, Commissioner French. So board members, as Mr. Valencia showed on the screen, my present intent is to schedule with the clerk of the board the necessary public hearings so we have them all on the same date. There'll be about 3 or 4 items, but it will simplify the process for members of the public and also for the lodging businesses. Any further questions?
Well, I think I was only expressing my viewpoint with regard to Northern Quest. I don't know whether you two would be in favor of that or not, so I don't want to presume that.
From what I
that would be
understand,
automatic.
from what I understand, Visit Spokane has had talks with Northern Quest. I don't know if it's being a full member of the TPA or just Northern Quest investing in the work that they do. I don't know if they necessarily want the individual room night assessment, but I know there is talks about them being more of a player in what Visit Spokane does. So.
And in that regard, Commissioner French, right now, under the new ordinance that's going to be established, as Commissioner Kearns pointed out, there's a multi Kearns. So now it will consist of 5 members. 1 ex officio member, which is a member of the county commissioners, 1 ex officio member, which is a member of the Spokane City Council, and then 3 voting members. And the 3 voting members are 1 appointed by the Board of County Commissioners from a recommendation from the Hotel Motel Association, which is the way it's presently set up, and 2 from the city of Spokane, because mostly the hotel are within their boundaries, and they would appoint 2 people from the Motel Hotel Association. So that's my present proposal, and I shared that information with Mr. Piccolo because he's briefing the city council on today, and I don't think they'd be opposing that. Commissioner Kearns, I think that would be consistent with how it's working right now. Okay, well, Commissioner CUNY, I think that's all I have to say on this. I'm sorry it took so long, but if any other questions?
That's good. I think I just want to just make sure that we've got the right order for the public hearing so that
Yeah.
we do it.
I will take care of that, Commissioner CUNY, when I work with the clerk.
Authorize.
Yes.
You're gonna authorize one first and then.
That is correct. I'll have that all scheduled and I'll have proposed motions consistent with the public testimony that we do receive on those. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
That takes us to Gary.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just wanted to share with you a short briefing on where we're at in terms of our outlooks for financing park projects in the future. The parks has submitted even for this year's budget and future years' capital planning processes, capital projects that range anywhere from 3.7 million a year to 6.5 million. And some of that, you know, they anticipate getting some grant money. But we would have to rely heavily on REIT 2 and maybe some REIT 1 for financing some of this and using that for debt service. So in light of that, I reached out to US Bank and asked them what they could do and their options. They responded back to me that they could offer us lines of credit and that we could draw on. Initially, we talked about a $5 million line of credit over 5 years, and they were quoting me a rate last week of anywhere between 3.4 and 3.5%. Now, they said that in order to get that line established, it'd take about 2 to 3 weeks for final credit approval. So they're flexible and they're able to get that available to us if we so desire. But that's just an option that we have, and it's available to us from US Bank. We reached out to another company called Holman Capital. And Ron, if you want to put that on the screen, Scott and I went through a presentation with the principal of Holman Capital, Lance Holman, on Friday. And they have some unique model that helps municipalities finance different things. And Ron, if you want to click on there's a little tab up top that shows public financing options. And what they do is they're unique in that they bundle certain things under a master financing agreement. And then under that master financing agreement, they can extend loans as a separate part of those financing agreements. So you don't have to keep going back to recreate all the legal documents. So their model is unique in that they utilize community banks to provide the lending. They bundle it up for them. And what they do is they make their money on the spread. So there's a little spread that they add to the interest rate that the community banks charge, and that's how they get paid. Now, the one nice thing about Holman Capital is you can just borrow it in tranches as you need it, and then structure the individual loans based on the term applicable to those particular capital projects. So for instance, in one particular case, you may only need a loan for 5 years, a shorter term financing arrangement for some shorter term projects. And then another one comes up maybe in public works side of things, where you could actually achieve a 20-year term and a payback based on that model. So the flexibility of their model is something that no one else that I've seen offers in this kind of arena, because they've got a lot of experience doing this. They're based out of California, and I used them for a couple of financing arrangements with Whitman County, and it seemed to be pretty good. But the advantage of using them is that, unlike bonding, you don't have to go through that long process and the bond issuance costs. And so what they're saying is we're able to get you the money on a more timely basis, and you wouldn't have to incur those costs. So that's where they provide that niche that they are using to market to cities and counties and state governments. It's a unique approach, and I think it's something that we should consider. Interest rates, of course, are dependent upon the time in which, you know, you apply and are looking for a loan for a particular dollar amount. But if we go forward with a master financing agreement, we can do so and then have the availability of those guidance lines of credit in each tranche available to us if we so desire, as we look at how our capital project requests are coming in and what we would need to finance it. Right now, just for background information, out of REIT 2, we probably have the ability to finance between 2.2 and 2.5 million a year. And anything over and above that would necessitate some type of financing arrangement. And this is in lieu of anything that we could do with our skip pool of funds through the treasury, because we've run up into some problems there in terms of getting those borrowings accommodated like we had in the past. So with this master financing agreement, this gives us the flexibility to continue for a longer term without having to worry about, you know, each 5-year loan that we traditionally would be looking at through the treasurer's office.
So we've done an analysis of if we're borrowing $5 million, just to give a number, what the cost over 5 years would be for the line of credit versus what the cost would be at this place versus what the cost would be at the treasurer's office.
No, since we were just given this option on Friday that we looked at, I can do that analysis and just do an apples to apples comparison on the 5 million. Now, the way Holman Capital works, of course, is that you wouldn't have a line of credit. You would be getting the 5 million right up front and paying interest from day one. On the line of credit, of course, you don't pay interest on anything that isn't extended from the line. So there would be that differential.
Right, but just trying to get an understanding as to what the different costs would be. And to know what that is, I think to say that if, you know, because we know we want to look for 5 million for parks, correct? It's kind of the number.
Yeah, as the numbers that Gary alluded to earlier, if you take out what they anticipate to get in grants, I want to say it's in the 3.2 to 3.8, 3.9 range annually, about that.
So I guess, you know, I would just like to see what that comparison is, to know what US Bank would be charging on a line of credit, because that line of credit is not a set rate, it's a variable rate based on, it can go up or down, at least usually line of credits do. I don't know what Holman Capital, is it a set rate then? Once we
It would be a
get
set
Trump?
rate. Each time you would have a borrowing under their quote master financing agreement.
And then I'm assuming there's still it's a set rate, but then there's still probably a cost to set it up. Yeah. So I just like to know what each of those would cost versus the treasurer's office as well, so our citizens know what we're paying for.
And
what
that would
potentially-
be also useful to have an analysis also of the bonding costs too. So if we were to bond for that with
Well,
that.
we wouldn't be bonding it, I don't think, on the park side. You know, because I think we've only talked about doing this for parks.
It could also be used as we, if we were to trial this out. The nice thing about this master facility agreement, they would give us up to X dollars, you know, just let's use a number, $30 million. And then individually, we could do those tranches that Gary referred to. We could try one out, see if it worked well for us. We don't have to try the rest of them out, but if we like it, it could also be something we use for all of our buildings here as we're looking at complying with the Clean Buildings Act. Things that we may need to do at the Fair and Expo coming up in the future. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to incorporate other projects with it there as well.
So I appreciate the analysis being able to compare. That would be very, very helpful. In terms of the private banks that you reached out to, did you consider maybe reaching out to Wheatland or Washington Trust as well, since they're local banks and they might have, I know that we did very, very well with Wheatland Bank on the PDA and Prime Air and stuff. And so they've got a little bit more local flavor to them than maybe US Bank does. it'd be interesting to find out what they'd be willing to quote us.
I think we could, the intent of reaching out to US Bank initially was there our banking relationship.
Right.
What we found with US Bank even is, and Gary, correct me if I misstate this, is they don't have a lot of experience with government entities. And so it's different for them as they're thinking about the backstopping and the financials and all this sort of thing. So it was kind of a clunky conversation with them. Holman Capital, that's all they do. They do local governments. And so they
Yeah.
understand the financial structures. They understand how government operates and all our various funds and stuff. But yeah, we could certainly reach out to those other two as well and see what they're, it's like you said, the PDA, West Plains PDA did use Wheatland for that building.
Yeah, US Bank's policies aren't created here locally and stuff has been my experience with them and stuff. So one of my partnerships banks with them and stuff, but you know, in terms of loaning, we go to a couple of the other institutions that are a little bit more local.
Yeah.
Because we get better rates, quite frankly.
One of the things that I've found with traditional banks is the first thing they ask for is, what are you putting up for collateral? It's like, are you gonna put a lien against the courthouse? Or are you gonna put a lien against the public works building? Because that's how they view all kinds of commercial lending, and that's their world that they look at. US Bank was even that way in terms of our first initial discussions. They just didn't have experience operating in this environment for municipalities, cities, counties. Whereas, like Scott said, Holman Capital, this is what they do. They're unique in that sense.
Gary, share with the board what Holman Capital shared with us around timing to set these things up.
Yes, they thought that it would be, I think, 3 to 5 weeks to get the initial master financing agreement in place. And then the first guidance line of credit, which would be the first loan under that umbrella, would take about 7 to 10 days. And then after that, it would be very quick to put subsequent loans in under that master agreement, if we so desire. And again, the flexibility is you don't have to use them once you have that master financing agreement set up, or you could use it when and if you think that they have a place or a role in helping us with these projects.
And again, this helps us when we're planning out our REIT long-term, rather than the pay-as-you-go basis where we're spending $3 to $4 million a year during, utilizing all of our capacity. We're able to set up some loans over 5-year periods, build those into what capacity we have in REIT, and then help us understand what additional that the board may want to use for other purposes as well. But we've set up kind of our financing every 5 years, and it rolls and it rolls and it rolls. We have a way to fund the parks, and then we have a way to see what sort of remaining capacity exists with the REIT.
Which works great when we have a steady REIT flow, but I think we're all concerned that we don't know what the REIT is gonna do in the next 2 years.
And the principal, Lance Holman, has offered to make a presentation to the board. If the board so desires at that particular time, if there's an interest by the board to utilize his financing.
I think I kind of need to know, what the differences are, since we're not talking numbers or any of that. I need to understand what those numbers could be and all of that.
Sure, so we can get you a comparison sheet like what you're asking for, and we can have something like that to you by the end of the week.
Any other questions or comments for Gary?
Thank you.
Okay. Scott.
I do not have anything for the exec session. And I don't have any miscellaneous either.
Mr. Fred.
I have an executive session item, won't take more than 10 minutes.
Okay.
We can do it today or tomorrow. There's no sense of urgency. And it's about the evaluation and performance of public employee.
Maybe more rushed tomorrow, though. Now
Yes.
we have the.
Oh, that's
Special.
right. Well, if you've got time, we can deal with it very quickly.
Yeah, I just take care of it today.
Yeah.
I've got a miscellaneous, before we go there, and then we'll have you
Yeah,
stay
no
with the
problem.
rest on that. So yes, so speaking of tomorrow, that during our executive committee meeting for the Board of Health, that we need to look at approving the tenant improvements for the 8th Avenue building for treatment services. So that's what the purpose of the executive or the
Yeah.
special meeting, as well as, since we're doing that, the health district board meeting is at the same time as the state of the county address for GSI.
So which one are you gonna do?
I know. Which one are you guys gonna do? That was really good question. So anyway, I just thought, as long as we have the special meeting, let's just add that to the agenda item to talk about that, because if all the other board members are in attendance, then we would need to do a different time. And the commissioners could be at the state and county, and Kevin could run the meeting, or or if he may not get a quorum, and then it's 2 months, and that's a budget. The first touch of the budget is September. So,
Has that agenda item to discuss that been noticed yet for tomorrow's meeting? Because with a special meeting, you can only talk about what is
we
noted.
talked about those were the 2 items that
Okay.
should be on the
Perfect.
special meeting.
Okay,
So I hope it came across that way.
okay.
I have not seen the notice.
Yeah, all I got was the meeting invite, so I
Yeah,
don't think I've seen the agenda yet.
so, and then I know we were talking 3 or 3:30, and so hopefully, I think it's at 3:30.
3:30, right, Gina?
So, and down at the health district. So. just After our meeting, but, so that's kind of how this all came about on Thursday. Was we need to TIs, get that approved since we're not meeting again.
So the meeting tomorrow is of the health board,
Yes,
or it is, okay. I wasn't sure whether it was this group approving or it was the health board. Great.
it is the
terrific.
health board.
Okay.
So that's why it will
Yeah.
be there. I just wanted to inform you as to what,
No, fine.
why we were doing it and what the need is, and then kind of for people to make sure you have your calendars up to date, so we can look at if we want to try to change that meeting to a different day.
Sure,
I think that's probably gonna be easier than not.
okay,
I'm just concerned that we wouldn't have a quorum with all 3 of us gone.
Yeah.
Unless you guys were wanting to go to the health district instead of listening to Jabber.
I don't know, what are you gonna talk about?
I don't know. So anyway, so that's what we're at. Now you have a
Miscellaneous.
seat.
So the small arms with our financial advisor and our bond counsel. On Friday, we had a presentation to Moody's. And then today's presentation is scheduled with S&P. That meeting went pretty well with Moody's. We're expecting, they're indicating they'll have their rating to share with us on Monday of next week. And we'll hear today when S&P will be ready with theirs as well. So just FYI, moving forward.
And then, okay, so can you state the purpose, the time, and who you would like in attendance for your executive?
Thank you, Madam Chair. An executive session for the purposes of discussing the performance of the public employee. And the only individuals that I would like to have present are the 3 county commissioners, Mr. Scott Simmons, our legal counsel, Mr. Jim Macio, and Ms. Ashley Cameron. And the length of it should be, I'm thinking 10 minutes, maybe 15, just to be safe. But yeah, and no decision to be made.
Okay, and then we will adjourn after we have that executive session for the day, and we'll reconvene tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So we'll now be going into executive session based on Commissioner French's statements. It is 10:15. We'll be until 10:30, and that'll give us just a couple minutes to make the adjustment. Thank you, and we'll see you all back tomorrow.